In 2008, BlackBerry was the most valuable company in all of Canada. Its stock price hit $148. Its market cap crossed $83 billion. Over 50 million people carried one in their pocket. The President of the United States used one.
Look, I was this cool high-tech guy when I got there, right?
Yeah.
And I was the first president to have a BlackBerry.
So did CEOs, celebrities, world leaders. People didn't just use their BlackBerry, they were addicted to it. The nickname said it all, CrackBerry. In 1984, two Canadian engineering students, Mike Lazaridis and Douglas Friggin, started a company called Research in Motions out of Waterloo, Ontario. In the early years, they built modems and pagers, nothing special. Then, in 1999, they launched the BlackBerry 850, a two-way pager that could send and receive email wirelessly from anywhere. At a time when getting email meant sitting at a desk, this was revolutionary. Lazaridis understood something no one else had figured out. Bandwidth in the 1990s was limited, so he engineered BlackBerry devices to compress data so efficiently they worked on networks that would choke every competitor. While other companies charged a fortune for devices that barely worked, BlackBerry just worked. Corporate America noticed immediately. By the early 2000s, BlackBerry had become the device of choice for executives, lawyers, and government officials. Its encryption and security were so trusted that the U.S. government deployed it across federal agencies. By 2007, $3 billion in revenue. BlackBerry didn't just sell phones, it had become a status symbol. If you had a BlackBerry clipped to your belt, it meant you were important, you were connected, you were in the game. The physical QWERTY keyboard was beloved. The battery lasted for days. BlackBerry Messenger, BBM, became the communication tool of a generation. At its absolute peak in 2008, BlackBerry controlled more than 50% of the U.S. smartphone market and nearly 20% of the global market. It was, without question, the most important device in the world. Then, on January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco, and everything began to change. The morning after the iPhone was announced, BlackBerry's leadership team held an emergency meeting. 9 of their engineers, some in senior positions, put together an internal analysis. Their conclusion? The iPhone was a serious challenger. Its touchscreen interface could set a new standard for the entire industry. Management disagreed. BlackBerry's executives had their engineers tear the iPhone apart. Literally, they found 3 things they liked. It was expensive to manufacture, it failed their drop test, and it didn't have a physical keyboard. To BlackBerry's leadership, the iPhone was a niche product, fragile, overpriced, built for consumers, not business professionals. One executive reportedly said the iPhone would never appeal to business customers because you can't type on glass. For a while, the numbers seemed to prove them right. By the end of 2007, Nokia controlled 50% of the global smartphone market, while Apple had less than 3%. BlackBerry was still growing. In 2008, the year after the iPhone launched, BlackBerry sold more phones than ever before, but the market was quietly shifting in ways BlackBerry couldn't see or refused to. In 2008, Google launched the first Android phone. Now, BlackBerry wasn't facing one competitor. It was facing 2 entire ecosystems, iOS and Android, both pulling developers and consumers away. BlackBerry's response came in late 2008, the BlackBerry Storm, their first full touchscreen phone, their answer to the iPhone. BlackBerry rushed it out. Executives allocated a massive marketing budget. They were confident. The Storm was a disaster. Reviewers called it sluggish and buggy. The touchscreen was unresponsive. It crashed constantly. Verizon, BlackBerry's biggest carrier partner, watched the Storm fail and immediately started investing in Android as a backup plan. But here's what made this moment so critical. BlackBerry didn't see the Storm as proof they needed to change direction. They saw it as a bad product launch, not a signal that the entire consumer smartphone market was moving somewhere they couldn't follow. While Apple was building an app store that would host 50,000 applications by 2009, BlackBerry launched its own app store with roughly 1,000. While Android was recruiting developers with an open ecosystem, BlackBerry stayed closed. While consumers were discovering that a smartphone could be a camera, a music player, a gaming device, and a map, BlackBerry kept optimizing for email. The company wasn't failing at execution, it was succeeding at the wrong thing. By 2010, the cracks were impossible to ignore. BlackBerry still held over 40% of the US market, but the trajectory was clear. Every quarter, the number went down, and every quarter, Apple and Android went up. Inside the company, things weren't much better. BlackBerry had two co-CEOs, Mike Lazaridis, the engineer who built the product, and Jim Balsillie, who wanted to pivot to software and services. They disagreed on strategy. Long-tenured employees started leaving. The company was pulling in two directions at once. In 2011, market share fell to 14.6%. A year earlier, it had been 20%. That same year, BlackBerry released the Playbook, a tablet meant to compete with the iPad. It launched without native email support, a BlackBerry product that couldn't do email. In 2012, BlackBerry's stock hit $6.10, down from a high of $148. A 96% collapse in market value in 4 years. The board brought in a new CEO, Thorsten Heinz. He promised a comeback built around a new operating system called BlackBerry 10. It took 2 years to build. When it launched in 2013, reviewers said it was actually good. But by then, iOS had 900,000 apps. Android had 800,000. BlackBerry 10 launched with 70,000. Developers had already committed. Consumers had already switched. Businesses that had waited were done waiting. The same year BlackBerry 10 launched, the company officially changed its name from Research in Motion to BlackBerry, a rebrand at the moment of maximum vulnerability. They believed loyal customers would wait for them to catch up. Those customers had already bought iPhones. In 2014, BlackBerry posted a $5.9 billion loss. The company wrote off unsold inventory in droves. By 2016, BlackBerry had abandoned hardware entirely. The phone that the world was addicted to was gone. The collapse raises an obvious question. Did it have to happen this way? Apple understood something BlackBerry never fully grasped. The smartphone wasn't a business tool with consumer features added on. It was a consumer product with business features layered in. Apple built an ecosystem first. The App Store, iTunes, iCloud, and corporate adoption followed naturally. Google went even further. Android was open, free. Any manufacturer could use it. They weren't selling a phone. They were building a platform. BlackBerry was selling a device. There's a difference, and it cost them everything. Samsung understood that the hardware game was a race. They ran it aggressively. Dozens of devices, every price point, every market. BlackBerry optimized for one customer type and held the line. By the time the line broke, there was nothing left to fall back on. In late 2013, the consequences were rolling in. In November 2013, John Chen, a veteran turnaround specialist, became CEO. Unlike his predecessors, Chen made no attempt to win the smartphone war. He declared it over. His strategy: stop making phones, start making software. BlackBerry's one genuine competitive advantage had always been security. Governments trusted it. Hospitals used it. Banks relied on it. Chen decided that was the company's real business, and the phones were just the delivery mechanism that had distracted everyone from it. Text overlay. BlackBerry pivots to cybersecurity and enterprise software. The pivot worked, but it required abandoning the thing that made BlackBerry famous. In 2016, BlackBerry shipped its last phone. A device that had once defined an era quietly vanished from shelves. Today, BlackBerry is a cybersecurity company. Its QNX software runs in over 235 million cars. Its security systems protect governments and Fortune 500 companies. The brand survived. The phone did not. 1 year after the rebrand launched, the data is clear, and it points to 3 critical mistakes. First, BlackBerry confused their customers with their market. They knew their enterprise customers intimately, what they wanted, what they'd pay for, what they'd never give up. So they optimized relentlessly for those customers. The problem? The market was changing around those customers. When businesses adopted bring-your-own-device policies, employees didn't choose BlackBerry. They brought in the iPhones they already loved. BlackBerry's own loyal customers walked away, not because they stopped liking BlackBerry, but because they started loving something else more. Second, BlackBerry mistook their product for their business. The physical keyboard, the battery life, the secure email, these were features. The business was connectivity, communication, productivity. When Apple delivered those same things better through an ecosystem, not a hardware spec, BlackBerry had no answer. They were defending defending a product while Apple was building a world. Compare that to what Amazon did when retail started shifting. They didn't protect the bookstore. They built AWS. The product is temporary. The capability underneath it is what survives. Third, BlackBerry let confidence become complacency. In 2007, when 9 of their own engineers warned that the iPhone was a serious threat, management dismissed them. When the storm failed, they called it a launch problem, not a strategic signal. When market share fell from 50% to 40% to 20%, each decline was explained away. By the time they acknowledged the depth of the problem, they had burned through the time and capital needed to fix it. The lesson: the most dangerous moment for any market leader is not when they're struggling, it's when they're winning. Because winning feels like proof that you're right. And sometimes, the people most likely to be wrong are the ones with the most evidence that they're right. Here's what we know. In 2007, BlackBerry had 50% of the US smartphone market, an $83 billion valuation, and the most loyal customer base in the industry. 9 years later, they had 0% market share and no phone business left.